Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at halfful_hockey, my website, half-hockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, what do we got,
We have a
Sheng?
very exciting episode. We have a very, very special guest, Nico Sturm, friend of the show. It's the second time on the show, but I wanted to have Nico on for the particular reason of there's still a lot of discussion out there about David Quinn, why he got fired, was it fair, all that kind of stuff. Who better than Nico Sturm to tell you the player side of David Quinn getting fired? If Nico was a political candidate, I don't think that there would be a Sharks player that would have a higher do you trust him score, a higher Q rating in that area than Nico Sturm. And so I think he's perfect guy to ask questions about David Quinn. And also, too, Nico shared his thoughts about the Sharks winning the draft lottery and about Macklin Celebrini.
And right now he's competing at Worlds. Our interview was conducted right after the draft lottery, right before Worlds started, so we talk a little bit about that as well. And Nico's always a fantastic guest, such a insightful hockey player person, and I love having him on here. So stick around for that interview. It's a great interview, guys. Other than that, we've got a few topics for this week. We're going to touch on some updates about the coaching search, what Sheng has been hearing, what's been out there in the media in terms of who could be the next Sharks coach. We can talk about Will Smith, a little bit of a discussion on just what might benefit him if he does leave college, other than just him being on the Sharks, as well as a quote recently about his chances of coming to the Sharks from at his time at Worlds. We're going to talk a little bit about Casper Halton and Luca Cagnoni's seasons coming to an end out of their respective junior playoffs.
So Halton's season did not come to an end.
This
We'll
is
talk
a
about
good teaser as well. And finally, we're going to speak about two more things. The topic of moving up in the draft and some Leon Draisaitl rumors, which is a name I did not anticipate.
We just are going to acknowledge him. We're not going to spend too much time on it.
Rumor with a capital R is a good way
Yes.
to put it. I guess,
not a capital R in quotes.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, like ultra speculation.
It's speculation.
Ultra speculation.
They're not. I don't know if they even get up to rumors. And finally, too, we'll close off too. Brody Brazil did an excellent interview with Jason Demers recently. You guys may have seen it. It's May 13th episode. You can find it on Brody's YouTube channel. And actually, it's a good contrast to what Nico said about David Quinn. Jason Demers had some interesting things. And Jason, always brings it. He's been a friend of our show, too. Always brings it. He has some interesting things to say about David Quinn. And we'll get to that at the end of the episode.
Love it. I guess the question on everybody's mind so far is we still don't have a head coach. Not that we expected to get one yet. I think we were all waiting at least until the draft lottery and then a couple more weeks after that to see really where the candidates started to come out of the woodwork. And what's been going on? What are the names that you've heard so far?
Well, we have Ryan Warsofsky, current Sharks assistant coach.
Yep.
And San Jose Hockey Now, we reported that last week. We'll say that it did surprise me at first because the initial things I heard were that he was going to get let go along with the rest of the other assistant coaches, that they were told you can look for another job. But in Ryan's case, though, they did interview him, check in and see where that is right now. But so he's a candidate. Elliot Friedman reported Jeff Blashill, which was a little surprising just because he wasn't a name that's really been mentioned. Jeff Blashill, of course, famously Red Wings coach from, I believe, 2015 to 2022. Not a lot of success with that team. Only made the playoffs once his first year there, but he's a guy with a lot of developmental experience. I'm not in on any of these interviews, so there might be something that's kind of clicking there. But so he's a guy that's in it. And a name that's been kind of bandied about a lot from the beginning. Sounds like he's still in it, according to Elliot Friedman, Nico Sturm. But Marco right now is busy. He's leading the Ontario Reign into the Pacific Division final against Coachella Valley. And so he's kind of busy right now. And so, those are the three main candidates that are sort of out there. I will ask you, Keegan, any of these three candidates excite you at the moment?
Always a Marco Sturm fan. been a fan of Marco Sturm's for a very long time, so that he's still out there. The Warsofsky one's interesting because that's the one that everybody was kind of thinking might be not like the heir apparent, but like we're getting this guy that's gonna be behind David Quinn for a while, see how
He
he
was
can grow
interviewed for
in.
the head coach job in 2022 before they
Exactly.
hired Quinn.
So somebody that's at least been around the Sharks system. I didn't know if that was actually a more of an internet thing or a real thing, and it seems like it's more of a real thing, which is kind of interesting. Wouldn't be upset with either of those guys. I don't know a ton about Jeff Blashill. I understand. I guess there is some, and you're looking for a development coach, and if there is that aspect to that, can't be mad at it. But you're right; they didn't have a lot of success, and I don't know. I would want to. I guess they are looking for somebody with experience, but man, it would be fun to try something new, like a Marco Sturm or Warsofsky. It would just be fun. So I would want those, I think. But I'd
Okay,
probably
good.
kick myself in a couple of years when they don't pan out. So, I just want something new. I want something exciting, and I feel
Sure.
like just the same retread coach is it's not gonna get me excited. Not that
Well, for
it
sure,
matters
yeah.
what matters to me. Like it matters
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
players think. So
yeah. I would say that Marco would definitely be the most exciting hire.
yes.
Obviously, he has Olympic success, led Germany to a silver medal in 2018.
Mhm.
Familiar shark too, great shark from the old days, from the 90s and early 2000s. Big part of the Joe Thornton trade.
Mhm.
I don't have a sense of sort of, you know, looking at this list. I couldn't quite really figure out what they have in common. I know there's more names that are out, possibly out there. I've been digging on it, and I'm gonna put out a story soon. There's a number of names that haven't been talked
Mhm.
talked to that might surprise you. And I alluded to that in an article last week, and I continue to kind of work on all angles, the guys who are being interviewed and guys who are not being interviewed that maybe people thought would get interviewed.
Yeah.
And so when I look at Blashill, Warsofsky, and Sturm as the names that are out there, they do all have developmental backgrounds.
Mhm.
Blashill, before he coached the Red Wings, he was Grand Rapids Griffins head coach, won a Calder Cup.
Yep.
I think he's coached not USNTDP, but I think he's coached World or maybe he's been part of that. I know he's been part of Team USA. I gotta check on that part of it. But before
Mhm.
that, though, he also has college experience as assistant coach in college and a head coach in college. And also he was a USHL head coach and general manager. So a lot of developmental experience. And Elliot Friedman made an interesting point, and of course that this is what happened with David Quinn too. But Elliot was curious about what guys learned after the first time around. Obviously, Detroit didn't work out quite like Blashill, the Red Wings would have liked, but what does a guy learn a second time around? Obviously, the same thing was happened with David Quinn. What did the guy learn a
Mhm.
second time around? Didn't work out with the Sharks. But of course, there are stories of guys who did seem to learn something the second time around, or at least it translated to success. I think Craig Berube is probably a good example of that off the top of my head.
Sure.
Before he was the Blues head coach, I think he was a Flyers head coach for a little bit. And so I just thought that was funny. So he's not the most exciting hire, but who knows? Maybe he could be the very best hire. But I think the three things of these three names, though, the other thing that they have in common is these are none of the heavy hitter names. These are not you haven't heard of Craig Berube, Todd McClellan, Jay Woodcroft,
Mhm.
any of the big heavy hitter names, even the guys that aren't Sheldon Keefe, or even the guys that aren't out there now, but who might become out there, like a Rod Brindamore. You haven't heard any of the heavy hitter coaching candidates associated with the Sharks jobs for obvious reason. The Sharks are in a clear rebuild, and
Mhm.
all these guys are looking to win a Stanley Cup probably, and they're going to teams that at least have a passing shot of
Yeah.
winning a Stanley Cup next year, be it the Devils or the Maple Leafs or whomever, right?
And I
And
think
so I think,
the other bit is that I think Craig Berube just got hired for Toronto's job like an hour
oh,
ago.
oh, really? I didn't see it. Okay,
Like an
well,
hour
thanks,
ago.
thanks for that. Yeah. So
He will
yeah,
not be the Sharks head coach. There we
he
go.
will not
Boom.
be confirmed.
Confirmed.
Well, I never
Uh,
even heard his name associated, and I
yes.
chased that too. I chased some of the heavy hitter names just to see who knows
Mhm.
if something could work out there for
Yeah.
uh, that they could be interested in a change of pace or in maybe a little more patience, because obviously Craig Berube going to Toronto. Sounds great on paper, but until you actually get there and you lose in the first round or second round a couple of times, on to the next coach, right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds great on paper. Whereas in San Jose, of course, this is what David Quinn probably thought too, but you figure that you might have a little bit more rope and that sort of thing. And so but anyway, so I think that's those are a couple commonalities. I'm still actually very interested in when they do hire the head coach, or if I can tug on my sources to figure out what the Sharks are looking for exactly.
Mhm.
And developmental part you see clear with these three names, and with most of the names that you've seen even on the periphery of this conversation. But besides that, not so sure. I know that there's been talk that they're looking for ex Sharks, but obviously Blashill, that's not him at all. So that sort
Yeah.
of that sort of that sort of contradicts that, which I think is a good thing. I think I talked last week or 2 weeks ago about how I think that that's a kind of a silly bar. I get it to some degree, but I don't get it in terms of the job as important as head coach. You just want a guy that is going to develop your young players and to lead you to the promised land. It doesn't matter if he used to be the Sharks video coach, he used to be the Sharks assistant coach in Warsawski's case, or he used to be a Sharks player like in Sturm's case. So
Yeah. Want the right guy for this job. I don't even know if this is going to be the right guy for the Stanley Cup winning job, but the right
sure,
guy for this
good point.
job at least.
Good point.
Um, and I think people thought maybe David Quinn was the right guy. Clearly Grier is thought differently.
Yes.
So I wonder how much he changes his hiring thoughts based
Yeah,
on
that's
that
interesting too.
hire.
The contrast who
Mhm.
he hires to what we were told about David when they hired Quinn. So
Yeah, we'll have to see like after somebody gets announced what the differences and how he speaks about the coaching hires and
hmm
just their differences and how they are as coaches will be interesting to see. Okay. So no news, but some minor news, I guess some little news. And then speaking of no news and minor news, Will Smith. We're still on Will Smith watch. WSW.
yes, WSW.
I'm gonna put a sign up. WSW. Will Smith was interviewed. Was it by Aaron Vickers?
Aaron Vickers, NHL.com, also does great work for Future Considerations.
Mhm.
And he is covering the World Championships for NHL.com in Czechia. So he actually asked Will in person.
Yeah, he got the. He had to go all the way to Czechia to get a scoop on this story. And
Well,
the
follow Aaron's Twitter because he has it's
yeah.
actually a great place to go if you're a reporter, and not a lot of reporters can obviously afford to fly to Europe in
Mhm.
May. But if you're able to do it and you're able to get the access, I mean, there's so many stories that if you read his Twitter, he's giving you updates about what Brady Kachuk thinks about the Senators hiring Travis Green,
Mhm.
Will Smith's thoughts on Macklin Celebrini, just anybody
Yeah.
who's out there at World Championships and there's something relevant, you can ask him. Ask Johnny Gaudreau what's going on with the Blue Jackets GM search. What does he think about that? I mean, who knows? I'm just throwing that out there, but it just seems like kind of the world, no pun intended, is Aaron's oyster right now.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't see any other reporters out there in Czechia. English speaking reporters at least. And so anyway, I think
You
that's a
mentioned
really
this.
great thing so you follow Aaron on Twitter,
Mhm.
and I think it's is it AA Vickers? I know there's an
Um,
underscore. Let me look it up really fast. So I want to
sure.
promote the man properly. So he's
And
giving
you've
us all this good work.
yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned this before too. Yeah, once you get the handle there, players typically are
AA Vickers. Yep.
a little more loose-lipped when they're on the road rather than when they're at home. And I guess this is like the ultimate road, right? It's a bunch
Well,
of
it's the other way
players that
around. They're
are.
more they're more loose lip on the road than at home.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
yeah,
is like the
yeah, yeah.
ultimate road, right? Like they're away from their teammates, they're away from their teams. They're
Yeah.
like
Season's
in
over.
season's over. It's
You're in
like
Czechia. You might
you're
run
in
into
Czechia.
you might run into Brady Kachuk having
Hmm.
tipping one back at a
Yeah.
bar. Hey, what's up, Brady?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting. He asked Will Smith, "Hey, what did the have you made a decision on going back to the Sharks?" That kind of thing, and Will Smith answered, "Still up in the air." So
Right.
that's the big
And
news.
that's consistent with what I've thought about. I know that there's been a lot of contrasting, conflicting reports. He's gonna come out with
Hmm.
Celebrini. He is not gonna come out, and maybe even Celebrini will stay and that sort of thing. And I would have to think that in his mind, Will has made a decision to some. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that. I'm obviously not in his mind. So there's probably a good chance that there has been some kind of decision made or something he's leaning to. But at least publicly, though, everything that I've heard from people around the situation, around Will, around the Sharks, is that it is indeed up in the air.
Hmm.
And I was talking to somebody that a couple interesting points I want to add though to this non-news story. I also want to apologize to everybody. I wrote the story off of Aaron's quote, and I titled it "Report: Will Smith still hasn't decided if he's signing with Sharks." And I forgot that we are living in a post Cutter Gauthier world.
Oh, yeah, good point. I didn't even think about it,
Yeah, I didn't think
to
about
be
it too
honest.
because I think the last time that a high profile, high draft pick too, really high draft pick, there was like a real debate about about the guy
Yeah,
defecting or becoming a UFA. Though I haven't done any hard research on this, but Blake Wheeler was the one that I can think of a long time ago. That's a long time ago. That's like 2004 or something like that when he
yeah,
was a top 5 pick of the Coyotes. And otherwise, I know there's like Adam Fox, but Adam Fox was a second round pick that really blossomed in college. And so by the time he was ready to come out, he was basically the equivalent of a lottery pick, right? So that's a little different than the guy that from the time he was
yeah,
drafted, he's been catered to by the team. He's been sort of spoiled. Hey, you're the man, you're the guy, etc., etc. Right? There should never be a moment where Will Smith feels dissed by the Sharks, and I don't think that there has been. Where he feels slighted or whatever
yeah.
he feels like he's not a priority of the Sharks, right? Because he was the 4th overall pick of the 2023 draft. But anyway, I think a few comments on San Jose Hockey Now on
Mhm.
Twitter too. I saw a couple. Someone asked me like something like, "Oh, is he coming?" Like I forgot what the question was on Twitter, but just I looked at it and I was like, "Wait, why are you worried about that?" Because I wrote a story 3 months ago with his agent saying nothing to worry about, no issues,
This is true.
and I haven't seen anything like that. But I realized though again that we're in a sort of a everyone is kind of sensitive, paranoid after what happened with Cutter, Gauthier, and the Flyers, and basically demanding his way out of town, eventually landing in Anaheim. That I don't think that's the case at all with Will Smith. Of course, things can happen. That can become the case in a year if things don't work out. But at this point, and I don't anticipate any issues.
Mhm.
And so I do want to say that flat out. And I actually want to thank too Joseph on San Jose Hockey Now, frequent critic of mine on SJHN, but he mentioned that and he was right. It wasn't intended. I wasn't trying to gin up clicks, which is what other
Yeah,
people thought. I really wasn't. I honestly just didn't think about it because I was thinking in the capacity of next year. That was sort of my mind. That is my mindset with Will Smith. That's how little I'm worried about
yeah,
a Cutter
absolutely.
situation developing, at least at this point. That I wasn't even thinking about people being worried about Cutter because I thought that I had addressed that also in the story months ago, but that was months ago. So I should have been a little more careful about that. And so anyway, nothing to worry about. But the two unrelated Will Smith things I wanted to
Mhm.
mention were that I was talking to someone. He made this point that I thought was very good. I'm not saying this is like the defining winning point in terms of whether Will should come out or not, but I think this is a good point to throw into there. That obviously Will can still develop in his body, and he can do that in college, right? He'll get a lot more time to do that in college than the NHL. But in terms of his actual game on the ice, and we've seen this.
Yeah.
And this is why I think that opinions oscillate to some degree. This is why opinions oscillate about Will as a player. We have sort of on the lower end, right? We had Cameron Robinson on about a month ago talk about that. And we have on the higher end, and we'll tease this. We'll tease this again later. We talked with Craig Button. Craig Button loves Will Smith. And so there's sort of
Yep. There's
that
some.
little higher, a little bit lower, right?
Mhm.
And part of it is because in college he is not a highly responsible player in college. He isn't at this point because he doesn't have to be. He's not a
Mhm.
Macklin Celebrini type where it's just sort of ingrained in him that he's going to play the right way no matter what, even as a freshman in college, right? With Will, it's not. he can get away. I mean, Macklin could get away with it too, but he doesn't. Whereas Will, he can't get away with it, and he does because he is on the best line arguably in college. And to tease Craig Button again, Craig calls it actually the best line not in the NHL over the
Yep.
last couple of years. This line with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault and Will Smith. And so he can get away with so much in college, and he will continue to probably do so, at least on the ice. And so on the ice, it may not be benefit that a lot of times you see, right? And we've seen with so many players at this prospects with this level. We don't need to throw in the tell you the names because you know all the names. It's basically every high skill, high end prospect, forward prospect that comes into the league has to learn to play a modicum of defense. That's usually not how they come into the league doing. That's what makes Macklin Celebrini so special because he's
Yeah.
already doing it. But very, very rare is a guy like that going to come in as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old and do that, right? Like they
Mhm.
need to learn that to actually win at the NHL level, you need to back check, you need to do this and that, right? Things that may not be as fun, but they lead to winning, which is a lot of fun.
Sure.
And I think that Will does have that curve still to learn, at least at the highest level, the NHL level. And he's not going to do that going back to BC. I'm not saying that there are no other benefits to going for him to go back to BC, but in terms of that part of it and getting to play with his buddies, his line mates, where they just will roll the roost in college in their sophomore seasons until they get to like the final against DU, where they learn okay, that's maybe that's a little bit of winning hockey there. And but until that point, though, they're just going to dominate the whole season until they get to like the Frozen Four or whatever. And so I think that that was a good point to think about, that at least the on the ice part, that will maybe best serve being getting challenged. Just like
Yeah.
he's challenging himself now at World Championships, even though he isn't playing a lot, he is still practicing against the best players in the world, practicing against men, practicing against literal stars and superstars, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a great experience for him, even if he's only playing 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes a night. And so that's one point that was brought up to me by somebody that I think is an interesting thing to bring in a conversation. The second thing I want to bring into that was very interesting that someone else told me, and somebody that I'll say has made very, very high draft picks before at the NHL level, lottery picks, that sort of thing, right?
Sure.
And he was telling me a story of someone he drafted a long time ago, and basically this guy's a high school kid when he got drafted, and nobody to hang out with on the road. The team goes on the road. Of course, the team will try to include him, but if you are a veteran NHL team, you want to go get a drink somewhere, go grab a beer, right? You can't necessarily bring 19-year-old Will Smith with you or
Sure.
17-year-old Macklin Celebrini. But okay, what happens when you have Celebrini uh, as your number one pick instead of, let's say the Sharks had lost the lottery and they picked Artem Lashunov or Caden Lindstrom or whoever they might have drafted, right? Lashunov, Lindstrom may not make the Sharks next year. Celebrini, we're fairly certain if he does come out that he is going to make the Sharks next year. And so if you're Will Smith, you have somebody to hang out with. You have somebody that will not exactly replicate the fun you had with your good buddies Leonard and Perot, because you don't know Celebrini as well. And that's what it sounds like talking with both Celebrini and seeing Smith's interview with Aaron Vickers, that they don't seem to know each other particularly well, but obviously they're familiar with each other, having played against each other in college. And also, I think USHL level when Macklin was with Chicago
Yep.
Steel and Will was with USNTDP. But you see, you have kind of like a running mate. You have
Yeah.
somebody that you can room with, maybe. You have somebody that when the guys are getting some pops late at night, you can't be a part of it. You have somebody you can talk to, or even when you're back in San Jose, right? Like if there's something that maybe you can't be or shouldn't be a part of because you're underage or look bad, whatever, you get caught, that sort of thing, right? You have somebody that you can hang out with, someone that you can talk to about what's going on, being basically a teenager on a rebuilding Sharks team. And so I don't know Will Smith well enough to know that that's important to him, but I mean, if I was 17, that would be a plus to know if I knew I was going to a hard situation,
Mhm.
and I had some, and I knew that there's somebody coming in with me about the same age. We could talk about sort of we had that in common, right? That
Yeah.
experience of being a teenager trying to turn around this moribund franchise, whatever, right? That would be a plus to me.
Did you
And
use the word
so,
moribund?
yes, I did.
That's very good.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Well, what I would be interested in is if we could get like Patrick Barlow's opinion on that kind of thing, because he was a guy that came in
sure,
super super young and came across the country and
right.
well, the continental whatever the North America, and joining a place that like it's unfamiliar, and I wonder just how much it would mean if he did have somebody his age at the same time.
Well, I think he did though. Let me look up on this, but I believe that was Marco Sturm's rookie year too.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
Marco's a year. I mean, actually like the Celebrini Smith
Hmm.
case, but Sturm is a little bit older.
Yeah, maybe a
But
year or two, right? And
should be just a year because yeah, Sturm was
a
19 when he
year,
entered the
yeah.
league, and Marlowe was 18, and Sturm stayed the whole year too.
So
So it wasn't like let's say you draft a Caden Lindstrom and you give him 9 games and then you send him back.
yeah, then
That's
he goes away.
definitely not the same thing, right? Whereas yeah, I wonder. That's a good question to ask Patrick and ask anybody around the Sharks at the time if that's something that they kind of anticipated too.
Hmm.
That they thought that
Because
Marco probably was ready and that he could sort of be his running mate. And Marco and Patrick remain good friends to this day too. And so yeah, that's a good question to ask Patrick Marlowe. But yeah, so I think that's a little underrated. This is sort of like the soft stuff. Like
yeah.
it's not about just like points that he can put on a board or like if he's strong enough or big enough or that sort of thing, right? But yeah, just having somebody that you can talk with, same age, that's going through exactly the same thing that you are.
Yeah, it matters for sure.
Hmm.
And it's a huge transition. And I think the other aspect, and Craig talks about this too in the interview that we're going to have next week, but that even if they do go back, even if both of them go back, it's only going to be till about April, you'd think. And then they both would be signing with the Sharks
Well,
anyway.
that's still a long time though. So I would
I
say
know.
I would push back
I,
on that. Like there's a big difference there. So but he did give a
yeah,
lot of arguments of guys that
he did.
did stay and came out in March or April, like Kale McCarr, for example. That so I'm not saying either way. I still think that will come out in terms of just like what I think, and I think he's ready for it, and I think it'll be a good thing for him. Same
Hmm.
thing, absolutely with Macklin Celebrini too. But I'm not saying if they do go back, it's some kind of disaster or whatever.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
don't think
already
so.
seeing people Chicken Little like, oh, if Will doesn't want to come out, he doesn't want it. Like, come on,
No.
give the kid
Um,
some time. So
Yeah, I don't think that at all. I think
yeah,
I would like to see him away from Leonard and Perot and
yeah,
trying to drive play away from those guys because even we're not even mentioning the defensive stuff, but like the offensive side of their game and his game when he plays with them is very I don't know what the word is. It's not deferential. It's just like it seems to be the same and it doesn't evolve that much, and you can
yeah.
see
The
that is
person that I talked to, actually, to your point,
yeah.
was that going back to college, it's too easy for Will to fall
Yep.
back on his bad habits, the ones that he does have in the college game.
Yeah, absolutely. And he needs change up, I think, at some point. He already led the NCAA in points. I would
Right.
be super pumped for him to come out. I still stick it with it. He goes back just for
Okay.
I don't know, whatever reason. I just think that's what's gonna happen. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the best thing to do for him, but I think he does. But who
Okay.
knows? It's still up in the air, as they say,
Yep.
as the as the WSW continues.
Yeah, I figure we won't know then until after World Championship. So we have
Yeah.
another week or two of WSW.
Yeah, maybe he just really hasn't had a good long talk with Mike Grier. Like they just haven't. He's been busy. I mean, both of them have. So
Maybe. And I do think it's my theory. I don't have this confirmed, but it's my theory that if you're undecided, it's good to go to World Championships and good to test yourself.
yeah,
I think it's interesting to note that Celebrini had the choice to stay with Canada for the World Championships too. I don't know if he would have played at all. Like at least Will, there's an option of playing, or there's a chance that he'll play, even if it's not that much. I'm not sure if that's what if Canada offered Macklin a chance to play still when they took him off the team. But I feel like there is a little more how do you say it people are more sure that Macklin is ready for the NHL in terms of body wise and all that kind of stuff. I think people are pretty sure about Will, but
Yeah.
not as 100% as with Macklin. And so I think maybe for Will, maybe he thinks that too. And so it's a good chance to test himself against Brady Kachuk, against I don't know, Zach Werenski, whoever, whoever's
Yeah.
defending him. And so Luke Cunnin
Hmm.
is there for the Sharks on Team USA. And so I think that would be a logical part of the equation if I wasn't sure. So
Hmm. Did you know that Casper
mhm.
Helton put up 17 goals in 18 games in the
Yes.
OHL playoffs?
Yes, I do. Yeah, winning the OHL championship, and
That's pretty
not
good.
the season is not over. He and the London Knights are going to the Memorial Cup, which starts next week,
Hmm.
along with the Moose Jaw Warriors from the WHL and what team from the Q? I forgot the name. I wrote a
Oh,
story about
I
it,
can't
but
remember.
and the host team is Saginaw, so
Saginaw.
they're there.
Saginaw, and then who's Q?
Let's see. Let's give them their flowers because
I
they
can't
deserve
remember.
it for getting to the
Or maybe they're not done
Memorial
yet.
Cup. The
Oh,
Drummondville. I don't know how to say this.
voltages.
Voltages. Okay, very good. That sounds
Voltages.
that sounds that sounds that sounds
That's
real. So that sounds
some
accurate.
the French Canadian fan is going to be like, you no, no, that was completely wrong. Anyway, Casper Alton, I watched a few of those games.
Mhm.
There's times when Halton had this when he was playing. I think it was the U18s, not this year,
Yeah, for
last year.
Finland, right? Yeah, last year he
He
scored a
takes
lot of
over
goals. Right?
games sometimes. He really can look like I guess takeover is the right word. He really can look like an impactful player
Mhm.
at certain times. And he's just gotten more and more comfortable in London, which was a stacked team, and a lot of times he was playing like third line even strength minutes, even throughout the playoffs at certain points,
Mhm.
and would be just feasting on the power play. But I think it really has done wonders for his development to come to London and come out of the Finnish system and come into his own as what he does well, even if it
Mm.
is against junior competition. Because he wouldn't be doing this if he was in Finland. He would
Sure,
just
he wouldn't be
be,
playing, maybe, right?
well, yeah, or he'd be like fourth line, getting 8 minutes a
Mhm.
night, and being like, here, hit that guy, and that's it, and like take a far off shot from the point once a game. That's your shot, kid. Like it doesn't feel the same as him going out and refining what is at this point in his hockey career, what's going to make him an NHLer if he ever makes the NHL is what he's doing, feasting on the power play, his shot, some of his like big physical winger aspects. Those are the things that are going to make it. So you got to get good at that and get to rise the bottom of your floor attributes as well. So
Right.
those things that you need to round out, they need to round out. But the first part's got to be exceptional, and he's starting to like really hone that, which is
Yeah,
good.
no, that's true. Earlier in the season, I didn't know if it was so exceptional that the
Hmm.
stuff he's great at, but that is coming through now, and so he is a guy that's going to definitely benefit from another year there, and maybe
Yeah.
a entire year of domination, right, and being like the guy for London. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it is exciting to see his progress because I definitely heard a lot of mixed things when the Sharks drafted him. Some people were like, that's a kind of a D&D guy, and just in
Yeah.
terms of like he's too limited. He's not gonna become a better all around player. That was just the opinion of
Hmm.
some people that I trust, and other people who liked him and liked the pick and like sort of the potential that he's a second rounder, right? So he's
Yeah.
not he's not he's not a lottery pick. He's not well rounded. That's expected, right? He's going to be more about potential, and if he hits, then he can be a pretty dynamic player, and looks like he's trending in that way.
Yeah. It's and keep spoiling this Craig interview. It's gonna be a good one. He mentioned that as well. He really
He had a
likes
lot of interesting things
Halton.
to say about Casper,
Hmm.
and I don't want to give it too much away, but also about Luca Cagnoni, whose season just ended to the
Yeah.
Moose Jaw Warriors.
Yeah. So stick around for that next week. Cagnoni again. I think he goes back to the WHL last year. I think we had a conversation about it on our
Oh yeah, in our
mailbag
mailbag, right? Yep.
about whether or not he should go to the AHL or WHL. But you never know what happens over an off season. But I would, yeah, I would say that he probably needs another year at least to go back and work on a few things, skating included, as well as his body and everything.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that mailbag in a second. That's getting me in some trouble on Twitter right now as we
Oh
speak.
no!
So,
At this
but
moment?
Yes, at this moment, yes.
What did you do? Are we getting
Okay,
in trouble
we'll
or is
skip
it
ahead
you?
then.
All right.
Let's talk Leon Draisaitl, right?
Okay.
And Leon Draisaitl, I put a story on San Jose Hockey Now. Look, I know it's probably crap.
Mm,
If you read the story, that's basically what I put into that. It's a reach, but if it's Greg Wyshynski, friend of the show, and Jeff Merrick, both insiders talking about, they have heard Merrick longer than Wyshynski over the last year. Maybe Leon Draisaitl is going to be free agent in summer 2025. Could he be interested in coming to the San Jose Sharks because the owner, Hasselplattner, is German? And hey,
mm-hmm.
the Sharks will have a lot of cap space. They can pay him. They can make him a 13, $14 million man potentially if that's what he wants.
Sure.
And there are so many sort of red flags about that, which I'm sure that Jeff and Greg know too. It's a speculation, right? And
Ultra speculation.
ultra speculation, right? In terms of just the Sharks, even in 2 years, summer 2025, probably will not be closed out of the rebuild quite yet, right? In terms of add a piece like a Leon Draisaitl. Also, too, Draisaitl will be, I think, 29 during the summer of 2025. And so that's the kind of contract it give a 7-year, 8-year to a guy like that got the Sharks in this
Yeah.
hole, of course, which many people have pointed out. Of course, if the contract works out, then beautiful, right? But there's a huge risk, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many things that are off about that. The Sharks obviously aren't a player or two away from. They probably will not be in the summer of 2025. They might be. Maybe I mean maybe you'll see that because that's 2 years from now. So maybe the Sharks will have shown enough that maybe they're close enough that maybe you take a swing on a player like that. So I'm not ruling it out, but it's definitely a real reach. And so I acknowledge that. But it's the summer, it's off season, and it's
Hey
two
man, it's
guys
fun.
that I think are trustworthy that are saying. I'm sure they've heard it, right? And I haven't
If
heard it yet
they're
myself, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone brings it up to me at some point too, because apparently it's out there,
if they're
right?
allowed if they're allowed to ultra speculate for funsies, so can we. I mean, we're
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
exactly, yeah.
lighten up, everybody. Come on, is that what you're getting in hot water in about? Is
No,
that?
no. It just so happens that it's the same week though that
Mm-hmm.
or after the same mailbag that someone asked, and again, this isn't me. I'm not putting this out there. Someone asked us in our podcast last week, our mailbag podcast last week, what would it take for the Sharks to land Mitch Marner?
A lot. The
And
answer's a lot.
okay, you can blame me that I chose that clip to promote, but look, it is Mitch Marner. It's a big name. Someone
Mm,
asked me, what would it take? And I proposed a trade that we both said no to. I want to add, we do not, just like Draisaitl and definitely with Marner, because Marner is a this summer proposition. Definitely the Sharks
yeah,
are not ready for that. Oh, correction too. Draisaitl summer free agent 2025. So I mean that's 1 year from now. So I
sure.
want to correct what I just said. But anyway, so definitely no with Marner. But
Mm-hmm.
then I'm getting response. No one's getting mad at me, but
Yeah.
here are responses to that tweet. Fuck no. Keep Marner outside the state of California from Nathan Prime 8.
Damn.
I wish we could put that up just like inside the NBA TNT. They
The
put up
whole
the
state,
tweets.
though.
So
Like
the
the
whole
whole
state, I
state.
know
It's a
that's rough,
huge
right? Yeah.
state. It's a huge state. There's three
with
NHL
3 teams.
teams.
Yeah, with 3 teams.
Damn. 55 million people around. It's a huge state. Like, come on.
But so I know it's not a great look to follow Draisaitl speculation with Marner speculation. In fact, actually, I told Josh Fragellin, who helps us put together the Twitter video clips, and he also writes at San Jose Hockey Now. So follow Josh Fragellin, JOSHFROJELIN on
Yep.
Twitter. And he also wrote an excellent story. He asked a question about Ethan Cardwell next week. So look back on that. He wrote a story about Ethan Cardwell mid-season, a great story, and other great stories for San Jose Hockey Now. So look up his work. But Josh had clipped this for me on Tuesday, I think. And I said, let's hold it because I don't want to write put out a Draisaitl article on Tuesday, I think he put it out, and then the next day speculate on Marner to the Sharks.
Yeah.
And actually I told him Thursday, but then I thought yesterday, you know what, I'm gonna hold it one more day. And so
Here we are.
And so I wanted to have more substantial work in between from me. So I wouldn't be accused of just being a rumor clickbait monger. And so I just want to put that out there that I do not think it's a good idea. Even
Sure.
the trade I thought, which I think is actually a fairly fair trade. Sportsnet had an article from Ryan Dixon kind of positing all these kind of speculative Marner trades this summer. Complete speculation on his part, but I think that the value, I hadn't seen his article yet, but I looked at it yesterday, and I think the value that we kind of, or that I proposed, Mario Ferraro, William Macklin, and this year's 14th pick from the Sharks would be roughly around the same value. And if you look at Ryan's proposals on Sportsnet, it's not that far off. It's in that range, right? But anyway, though, all speculation. It's just a coincidence that this week is Leon Draisaitl, Mitch Marner week at San Jose Hockey Now. It's not intended.
Yep, we're getting both, everybody. Getting both. We're gonna trade for Marner. We're gonna sign Draisaitl. We're gonna have
exactly.
We're gonna have Toronto 2.0.
Exactly, Toronto 2.0, right? Just a bunch of forwards, right? Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, dropping 7 goals on like the new Atlanta expansion team.
And everybody costs $14 million. And losing in the first round. It's going to be Toronto 2.0, everybody. It's going to be excellent.
But, okay, I want to segue forward to more substantial work. And so more substantial work is I put out an article yesterday about whether or not the Sharks should trade up and who above them might be interested in it. That's the substantial part in it. And I talked with beat writers from every team, well, not every team above the Sharks, but from 5 to 12.
Yep.
So from Montreal to Philadelphia. And it's a paywall article, so I don't want to give it all away, but the best quote I was telling you was from Craig Morgan, who doesn't actually cover the Utah team, but obviously nobody more connected with the Arizona Coyotes when they're there. And obviously the Coyotes, their front office is intact moving to Utah. So GM Bill Armstrong, right?
Yep.
And so he said, he just gave one sentence. The Coyotes are looking for a defenseman at number 6, or the Utah team. And so if Craig says it, that's like 95% going to happen. And so that's not a team that the Sharks are going to trade up with. But anyway, though, just want to get your thoughts, Keegan, in terms of just because there's been a lot of talk about the Sharks number 14 being outside of sort of the top 6 defensemen. From Buyam to Yakimchuk in alphabetical, not talking about the sort of the rankings of those guys, but
B to Y.
Anyway, though,
like A to Z, but it's B to Y. It's Buyam to Yakimchuk.
B to Y. Exactly. That's good. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm sure you've thought a lot about this last couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the idea of moving up? And you've read the article.
Yep.
Teams that maybe, at least based on the beat writers from their teams, what the beat writers thought, maybe Calgary at 9, New Jersey at 10 especially might be open to it. The other teams maybe not so much. But what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I really liked the article. Just as an aside, I thought it was cool to get that many opinions.
Yeah.
And I did like that Utah just said no.
Yeah, but it's so much insight from Craig, right? Just one sentence, but it's so much insight. Let me shout out the writers really fast. So before I interrupt you there, but Mark Dumont from Montreal Hockey Now, Craig Morgan, you guys know, friend of the show, PHNX Sports. Number 7, Ottawa, Murray Pam, Full Press Hockey. John Barr, Sound of Hockey, representing Seattle Kraken, number 8. Number 9, Trevor Neufeld, Calgary Hockey Now. Number 9, James Nichols, New Jersey Devils. That's 10. Number 11, Jason Moser of Buffalo Hockey Now. And finally, number 12, John Bailey, Philly Hockey Now.
I love it. I think I want a couple things. I want to game plan this out a little because I think mock drafts, being what they are, like, it's hard for me to see where these guys are going to fall unless we like really go like pick by pick and what you get kind of already done, which is to see what teams need, right? And I like the one where New Jersey, it's like, I don't know if they really do need a like they could use a defenseman, but it's not like it's high up on their list.
They're in the draft lottery for shits and giggles. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we wanted number 1 pick and we could throw in Macklin Celebrini to be our 3rd line center next year behind Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier.
I honestly wouldn't be
Literally in the
surprised
draft
if
lottery for shits and
they,
giggles.
yeah, if they traded out of this pick
Right.
for a player, like somebody to, or like a goaltender or something, like just because it's kind of like just free, not free money, but it's the money they don't need. I guess is the way to put it. Like they don't need, like it's great to have, but it's like extra money, and they could use it to get something they really want.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There is possibility that they do that pick is movable. I think. And then you got players or teams like Seattle and Utah, and it's like, no, we really need like a foundational piece here, you know?
Right. At defense, it seems like,
At
especially.
defense, especially. Like Utah, um, they have a bunch of skilled forwards, but maybe they are lacking that high-end defender, so
They
they're
have
probably going to grab
Shimashev,
one.
but
They
maybe
have
not
Simashev.
past that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call him like a puck mover though. Like he is and he isn't, but like I mean he great skater, a lot of raw skills at moving the puck, but he's not like so polished as these guys that are already doing it.
Right.
Um, Seattle definitely needs one.
Yeah. The high end kind of. Well, just like the Sharks, right? Yeah.
Buffalo probably could use one as well. They have Dahlin and like they have
Well,
power.
they're. I think they're okay, and they're in a place where they may not get the top defenseman too, because that's where maybe Buffalo will draft a forward, right? And
Yeah,
then that'll help the Sharks if
a
they
very
like all of the six guys there. I
a
don't know if they do, but
very smart hockey person once said, "Not everybody can go top 10." So I don't remember who said that, but there's so many guys that like basically are
I'm pretty
slotted
sure.
in.
I'm pretty sure nobody, not everybody goes in the top 10.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but it means like everybody's like, oh, this guy's top 10 for sure.
I
Like
know,
these
I know,
guys are
I know,
gonna
I know, I
go
know. I'm
when
just
you.
fucking with whoever
Oh, I know.
that said that.
But like, not everybody go top 10. So
Yeah.
like Macklin Celebrini, Demidov, Levshinov, Dickinson, Buyum, Perek, Tizhaginla, Carter Yakimchuk,
Mhm.
Silyayev. You haven't even gotten Katie Lindstrom or Berkeley Cadden or like
Iserman.
Iserman. Not everybody can go in this little grouping. So I feel like somebody's going to be there that it's, yeah, you might just hold it.
Mm.
But,
Okay.
but if you're at 10 and New Jersey's like, yeah, just slot us a second or slot us a player or something or slot
Yeah.
us Mikhail Granlund. Maybe. Because, like,
Stop trading Mikael Granlund.
I want McGranlund out of this. I want McGranlund out of here. Get out of here, McGranlund. I'm just trying to think of a player that the Devils could use from the Sharks, and he's like the only usable player that the Sharks have. Sorry, everybody else. No,
Well,
slot us Nico
they
Sturm.
actually could probably use they probably could use a Mero Ferraro,
They could, of
but
course, but I don't think it's
I don't know if the Sharks can afford to give up a Granlund and Ferraro if they want to surround
yeah,
Macklin
absolutely not
and Will Smith with actual
anything.
players next year.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
So, but I do think there is a fit there to trade up, and as long as one of the top 60 is left at 10, which I think, I don't know, unless you're really thinking everybody gets pushed out, like you'd have to push out so many people, and Tijagin included, Kaden Lindstrom,
right. I mean, they should go in the top 10, right? Based on
Berkeley Catton.
Demidov, yeah,
Berkeley Catton might be the one that falls, and if he's there at
Paul, right?
14,
Iserman too, right?
and
Well,
Iserman,
let me ask you then, since New Jersey is sort of
mm-hmm,
just we're just speculating, obviously, but just for fun, let's say New Jersey is the target and the Sharks can swing a deal to get
mm-hmm,
that number 10. Which defenseman do you think is there, and do you personally like that defenseman enough? Because we'll have to assume that Lushunov will be long gone, maybe
yeah,
Salayev, because it seems like opinions are mixed on him, but people do like him a lot. So let's assume that he's gone by then. And so who is left then? I don't know if is Yakimchuk that exciting that you need to trade up 4 spots for him. I don't know. So you tell me. So what do you think?
I personally see it like this. I think Levshinov goes first, and I think that goes in the like maybe Anaheim position,
Hmm.
just because Anaheim, not that they don't have it, they have a good amount of defensemen.
Yeah, they have a lot. Yeah,
But I think that he kind of makes sense in their system a little bit.
sure, rounds it out. Maybe sure.
He adds a lot of size.
Hmm.
And I think that just given that the fact that they just got Cutter Gauthier, they traded Drysdale,
Hmm.
their other top end prospects like Zellweger are kind of tiny, um, and so I see it going like Sharks, Celebrini, Demidov to Chicago,
Hmm.
Levshinov at 3. Blue Jackets are a wild card, but I don't know. Let's say they could take either defense or forward, but I don't think it's set in stone. And then
Okay.
Montreal is probably wanting.
What did Mark Dumont say? He actually gave two
Yeah,
names. I think he said Lidstrom and Demidov. Yeah.
Demidov. Yeah, I
So
think
let's say
Demidov will
let's
be
say let's
gone.
say Lidstrom. Let's say they go Lidstrom then. If we go with what Mark is saying.
Yeah, let's say they go Lidstrom. Then I have a feeling that Utah takes like Bouillon or one of the
Okay.
other high end offensive, like Bouillon or Dickinson.
Okay.
Ottawa or Seattle probably take um, Silyaev or who else is left? St. Perek maybe.
Okay.
And then Calgary's obviously going to take Iginla. So I don't think he falls past 9 or 10. I don't think any. I think given,
Iginla. Okay.
yeah. And then I think if New Jersey's there at 10, maybe they take like Berkeley Catton or some small forward. But
Well, who's
Yakupchuk's
left
the
in?
only
It's
one.
only Yakimchuk, the only guy left in your
Yeah.
projection.
Yep.
Okay. Let me rephrase this question. And let's say New Jersey is the target team.
Hmm.
Which of these defensemen do you think might slip to 10? And if you're the stretch, like, okay, we got to move up now. This is like the
Yeah.
guy. Because Yakimchuk sounds like in all the mocks, like he's like, yeah, he's in the top 6, but he's number 6.
He is very much number 6.
And so that's not so exciting, right? But if you're anyone in that top 5 you think could slip, like a Perek or
Perek could for
Bouillon, or you're
sure,
not
and I
seeing
would.
it?
I mean Prek could just because there is concerns
Okay.
with his defense, and um the other ones have like certain aspects to them that make them like rock solid, I would say.
Hmm.
So I would say Prek is probably 5th in that whole
Oh,
lineup,
fifth.
and
Okay.
I would do it for
You would do it?
Prek
Okay.
at 10, as long
Okay.
as it's not like an outrageous
I
price.
know. Yeah, yeah.
And not as
Reasonable.
like both second round picks, I guess.
Like like 10-42 and a prospect, or 10-33. I don't know. But
Yeah, something like that. I would do
yeah.
it because the Sharks
Okay.
need exactly what Zane Perek is in their system. Even
Okay.
if like everybody's still getting Merkley vibes, there's
Hmm.
more to Zane Perek than there was to Ryan Merkley as a
Okay.
prospect.
Okay. Would you do that? Would you make that move for Yakimchuk? How are you feeling about Yakimchuk? About Yak?
Ah,
No?
no, I don't think
Okay.
so. In my heart, I
Yak
wouldn't
about
because
Yak. Okay.
no, I like him and I would take him
I
at
know.
14.
Yeah.
But I think if you're worried that he's not going to get to 14, then that means one of the other guys is going to come out, like Hellenius or Cadden or Iserman or somebody where the offensive upside's still there. Yes, we're turning into Toronto with no defenders, but I don't know. We'll figure that out later, I guess.
That's true. Make the playoffs first, right? Figure out that
Yeah.
shit later. So it
I
makes
don't know.
sense.
Sign a bunch of free agents or I don't know. Trade for David Juracek or I don't know. But somebody's going to come out if you're worried that Yakupchuk's not going to make it to 14. So
Or let's segue then, if you're if you're done about the moving up
yeah,
discussion, or segue, hire Jason Demers to coach the Sharks defensemen.
they would all turn into Jason Demers, which is good. Love Daddy. Daddy had some interesting quotes on Brody Brazil's show regarding David Quinn. The only reason we're mentioning this is because right after this, we're going to go into our Nico Sturm interview where he also mentioned some, I wouldn't call it competing quotes, but like some other perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a slight contrast to it, though,
Hmm.
to some degree, and not to say that either is wrong. Nico obviously was in the locker room as a player, but Jason obviously knows a lot of players in the Sharks locker room, being a former Shark and
Hmm.
recently retired. And so I think both are very legitimate points of view. And I'm not going to give my opinion on Jason's quotes too much yet because I'm going to write about it a little bit. But I did want to read off a couple of the quotes just so you can contrast it to what Nico is about to say to us. And once again, this interview is from May 13th, and you can find it on Brody's YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So, a couple quotes from Jason. The thing that I noticed watching the Sharks game this year, this is Jason Demers talking, is that there was a lot of confusion in the D zone. I only put that on the players for so long before that's a coaching issue. As an NHL player, knowing where to go in the D zone is very important and also applying that. I think to a certain point, he wasn't the best team on the ice, but there's NHL players in that locker room. It's not like it's my Monday night beer league team.
Which I'm sure he's the best player, huh?
Oh, I'm sure he is. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And more from Jason. we have to give the players some credit that they can play some hockey. So I think there's too much confusion. He's pointing that on the coaches, too much gray area within the defensive structure. And there's more that Jason says about David Quinn to Brody. I don't want to give away the whole interview on there, so go listen to it. It's an excellent interview. It's about the 7 minute mark of that interview. But I wanted to give you a sense though of what Jason was saying, and that he
Mm-hmm.
is critical of David Quinn. That yeah, David Quinn didn't have quite the players, but Jason believes that David could have done more to get more out of the players, given them more structure. And so I have thoughts about that, but I'm going to save that for next time because we're running a little later than we said we would too. And I want to save that for a story. But anyway, I think it's a good segue to the interview with Nico Sturm. And just a
Yes.
reminder, the interview with Nico Sturm that, again, we talked with Nico on May 9th. So I didn't get to ask him about these quotes from Jason Demers. Would have been cool to actually ask him flat, directly. I think in his interview with Nico, I did ask him about structure, but in a
Yep.
more kind of oblique way, not as directly as Jason comments on it here. But anyway, we talked to Nico on May 9th. He was in Czechia. Talked with him after the draft lottery, so we got to ask him about Macklin Celebrini. But we talked to him right before the Worlds. But anyway, it's a great interview. Nico, like Jason Demers, he always brings it.
Absolutely. And he's very candid. He gives you an inside look into the locker room. And I don't think he ever mentioned anything about a lack of structure, more just that he mentioned like how many times could you say the like same things and still not working, like that kind of thing. Like maybe the voice was not as profound at the end of the year that it was at the beginning.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I got the sense of the interview, and we did an interview with Nico a week ago, so I don't remember everything about it. But
Yeah,
Nico seemed to take it more on on himself and the players
of
as
course.
not being able to carry out the
True
mission
team
or the
guy.
structure or whatever. And that could be where that comes from too.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, it's a great interview, so enjoy it.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you all have a good week. Let's talk to you next week. Bye.
We're excited to bring an old friend to the show for his second appearance. Nico Sturm, you know him. He's the straight shooting fan favorite center for the Sharks. He's currently in Czechia getting ready for the World Championships with Team Germany. Happy belated birthday, Nico. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Nico, your birthday was on May 3rd, so just checking. What's a birthday like for Nico Sturm? Were you able to celebrate stateside?
Not much. I was already here. It was actually, I think,
Oh,
the first day or second day that I joined camp for the pre-tournament action. So it was pretty much a normal practice day, and then a team dinner at the hotel at night. So not very much action going on for me that day.
do you eat something special tonight? Do you get a little cake, a little dessert? What do you eat that night because it's your birthday?
It was nothing. It was just a plain old pasta and rice hotel dinner, hockey dinner with the boys.
Oh man.
Okay.
Well, maybe next year.
Yeah.
So Nico, did you end up watching the draft lottery? Did you hear any news on Celebrini? Any thoughts on Celebrini?
No, I did not watch because time difference. I think it was around probably 1 a.m., 2 a.m. our time here. I'm not quite sure when. So, well, I woke up and I saw little snippets of Grierzy smiling. So I figured it probably worked out. It probably worked out the way we wanted it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Celebrini has this reputation. He's just 17, but he has this reputation for being a kind of a consummate two-way player. He's a guy that he has immense skill for a guy his age, but he also is a very responsible player for a guy his age. And what I want to ask you about him, I figure you haven't seen him play much, but how unusual is it for a guy of his 17 years old, a guy of his age, to just be that responsible two-way player? To have that kind of reputation along with all the skill that he brings.
Yeah, obviously never seen him play. Only read things about him. But 17 years old, dominating college hockey. That's pretty impressive to me. I remember coming in um, into college. I was 21, and you play against men that they probably got in some cases 25, 30 pounds on you, and I think for me, coming in as a freshman, first time you hit the weight room with those guys, it was you realize that you've got plenty of stuff, plenty of things to work on in the next 3 years, and um, a lot of times I think for a freshman that comes into college hockey, that's where they kind of hit the first roadblock because of the physicality of the game. And from what I've been hearing, he's adjusted extremely well. Not only been playing, but dominating. I think the points that he's put up is quite impressive. But like you said, I think probably more impressive maturity on the ice. I think one of the things that I read about him is more of a Jonathan Taves type player, two-way
Mhm.
player, right? That's one of the comparisons that I read.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that's very I think that's very unique, very special for a player that age to have the maturity to play smart hockey in on both ends of the ice. I think you got plenty of young kids nowadays. They're great, and on one end of the ice, I think we all know which end of the ice that is, because that's what most of the kids work on nowadays. Nowadays, I think that's what the focus is on, especially for forwards. And so it's good to hear that he's already figured a big part of that game out.
And have you been reading about your former team or I'm sorry, your future teammate a little bit there?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we don't know who's gonna get drafted, right? So I
Well,
think,
we
That's
know.
true. That's true.
yeah, no, I
Anything
mean,
can happen, I guess. But
yeah, so, no, I think again, uh, I saw a little snippet of Greasy after they said we're gonna pick first of all. I think there was certainly some relief to his face. I think we need, probably San Jose. We need a new franchise type player. I think that's probably the hope that. Um, Everybody in the organization has, and not to put too much pressure on the kid if he does get drafted by us. But certainly down the road, I think that management and fans hope that he's going to be the main guy to build around.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Nico, a big reason why we're having you on, we want to talk about this past year. Obviously, a very, very hard season for the Sharks. And a big reason why I wanted you in particular on is because the fans really trust your voice. You're like I said, the straight shooter. You're a candid, honest guy. And I know you can't say everything about what happened in the room, but I
Right.
think that among the fans, you have sort of that authority, though, that there's a sort of a legitimacy. There are a little less hockey cliches from you, and so that's why I wanted to speak with you a little bit about this. And I wanted to ask you about the firing of David Quinn. And just my first question is: were you surprised by it? Was as far as you know, the room? I know it happened after you guys had sort of all separated, parted ways, but were you guys all surprised by that happening?
Well, I would probably say surprised, yes, but not shocked, just because at the end of the day, it was a terrible year. We had a terrible year. You can name many reasons for it, but the year was bad. I just figured that it certainly wasn't on Quinny alone. I think there was probably a multitude of factors that contributed to, like I said, the season that we had. Um, and I figured that hopefully we hit rock bottom, and Quinny would have a chance to, coach his way or coach us into a new direction. And at the end of the day, um, management, Grizzy, and all the other people that make the decisions, they came to their conclusions. And I don't really know what all the things that factor into that decision. I can tell you that, but um, at the end of the day, I have to accept it for what it is. And I had a great working relationship with Quinny, and actually just talked to him the other day, and I got nothing but good things to say about him.
What did you think of him as a coach?
Yeah, I think he's great developmental coach. I think probably at some point, sometimes it shines through. I think he's great with the younger guys that he probably has that college background. That's why I figured, maybe we'll probably go into another year with him, and since we're gonna have probably a very young team again with quite a few inexperienced players, and you can tell that he's a hockey teacher. I think I've had a couple different coaches now in the NHL. Like my first one was like Bruce Boudreau, for example. Like
Mhm.
Bruce and Quinny, like they couldn't be further from each other on the coaching scale. Like Bruce is probably more, I would say, from my experience, more a guy that plays or that goes better along with a more experienced team.
Mm.
Team that's ready, team that's kind of has a lot of experienced players. I'd probably put him more on that end. Quinny is better probably with the younger players that still need to learn important parts of the game, and probably a big reason of that is because he was a college coach for so long, and a great college coach at that. Um, so yeah, I would probably put it as, yeah, maybe a little bit surprised, but not shocked, because I just know how, not just in hockey, but how the sports world works. At the end of the day, coaches are usually the first ones to pay the price if an
Sure.
organization doesn't have the success they want to have. So yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, probably.
And you said that you don't know exactly what management was thinking, but would you venture, like, from your perception, why do you think they let David go then? If he was strong in that developmental aspect that you mentioned, and obviously the Sharks are still in that phase. The Sharks are probably not going to
Right,
win the Stanley Cup next year, if we're being honest,
right.
right?
And I
And
and
so,
I,
yeah,
I think there were some guys that made great strides last year, like Eki and Sets, probably in
sure,
particular. They
Yeah.
took a big step forward. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think nobody really expected us to have like a great season standings wise. I think, but the expectation was, for me, and for everybody else in the room, that we wanted to take a step forward, right? And we got worse. Like, that's just the
Hmm.
reality of things. And again, that's not on Quinny. That's a lot of factors. I mean, injuries were terrible. Like, I think there is a big time. That's certainly part of it. Especially if you look at the center situation. I think we've mentioned it a lot. We never once played with the center group that they
sure.
envisioned down the middle to have, with Tommy, Cooch, Granny, and myself. We unfortunately haven't had one game. Cooch only able to play 6 games. Benny out, and so
Yep.
yeah, Quinny wasn't dealt the best hands. That's just how it is. He knows it. I think everybody else knows it. And but at the end of the day, again, you'll have to ask Gursey and the rest of management, but they probably saw that. Even with low expectations going into the season, we weren't anywhere near to where we wanted to be. So again, coach unfortunately usually is the first one to feel the wrath of that. So yeah.
There's some perception out there, and this might be more like fan perception, and so you can, kind of address it, or talk about it. But some people think that David lost the room in some
No,
way,
no,
and no, right? Yeah, yeah,
no, I can definitely uh, put a stop to that thought. Again, one of the good things that I can say about this year and about last year is that everybody always was great coming to the ring. There was
mhm,
never, I think, if you have a season as bad as we had, there's a very good chance that the wheels totally come off the wagon and that things go
Hmm.
completely south. And that's actually one of the things we did a great job of, and Quinny did a great job of, is to keep to hold everybody accountable every day, come to the rink and work hard, work on details, even if the end result that we wanted scoreboard wise wasn't there. And I like, again, I have to give them credit, because it's very hard to do when your season standings wise, if you know effectively is over in the middle of
yeah.
November, and
Yeah.
you still have to coach this team all the way to the middle of April. I mean, it's very easy to just fold it up and say, all right, we're just gonna let we're not gonna take control of this anymore. We're just gonna let the boys do whatever they want. No, they held us accountable. Guys worked hard in practice,
Mhm.
regardless of how the games went. So I do have to give him credit for that. There was definitely never a point where I would say that, it was coaching staff versus the team, or anything. Everybody
Yeah.
tried. Everybody tried.
Yeah.
Coaches and players. Yeah.
Was there a perhaps there could have been better structure or preparedness, or is that not something that you put on the coaching staff there? Is that because there's also execution that needs to come from the players. So.
Right. I mean, yeah, probably. Um, I would probably say that, yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, it's up to the players, especially up to us as the leaders of the team to feel out the room. Does everybody really know what we're doing, and then
Mm-hmm.
communicate that appropriately to the coaches? I don't think we did a good enough job of that as leaders on the team to because there were times where you talk sometimes to your teammates and we weren't completely 100% sure about every aspect of the game. And the reality is that in the NHL, the most minute details that the fan observing the game probably doesn't even realize will lead to a mistake on the ice that's not
Mm-hmm.
very obvious to the person watching, but it will lead to a goal because it opens
Mhm.
up a tiny area of space or creates a tiny 2-on-1 somewhere where again the average fan would never recognize that probably watching it, but as a player it becomes very obvious. And there were probably some, and I mean you can name very many areas of that, from breakouts to forecheck, neutral zone. um, was everybody always confident 100% of the time in what we're doing? Probably not. But again, that's not just the coaches. Like, they put the time in, they explain these things, and then they
Mm-hmm.
ask in the room, is this clear, like what we're doing here? And then everybody nods their heads, and then you go out there and we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Then it's on us to tell coach, hey, we should go over this again. I don't think everybody knows 100% what we're doing. And
Mhm.
the other thing too is probably, if you're struggling as a team, it's probably very important to maybe even oversimplify things. I think
Mm-hmm.
you could literally say, at least for the start of the year, when we go back in our own end and we don't know what we're doing for breakouts, every time you rim it up the strong side or you go out the weak side, so that everybody on the ice knows what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's on us as players to kind of be the link between the coaches and the rest of the team there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have the perception that David and his staff did actually really simplify things, and it
Yes, I
still
mean, yeah,
didn't quite.
they really tried to dumb it down for us,
Yeah.
and we, like, again, we weren't able to execute it all year.
Mm-hmm. I guess my final question about this is: do you feel like, you guys had not a lot of points this year, but do you feel like they got the kind of the most they could out of this team, considering all the injuries, considering all the turnover and the youth of the team? That actually, if you look at it, that where you guys end up in the standings is actually about where you guys unfortunately kind of belonged.
I mean, if if you give us the best coach in the world and everything goes perfectly right, maybe we don't come in 32nd, but maybe we'll be 27th or 28th.
Yeah.
But not that kind of that's about where we were at last year. That's probably the honest answer. That there's
Mhm.
again, it was probably some tough cards that the coaching staff was dealt. Again, I give Quinny and also the assistants a ton of credit for the upbeat spirit that we had
Hmm.
at practice every day. Um, I don't envision that to be very easy to do, and so yeah, again, that's kudos to them to trying to make the best out of a very very tough situation.
Yeah, no, I could only imagine. By the last month of the season, I had no idea what to ask
Yeah.
you guys or the coaches.
Yeah.
Right,
So I
and
can't.
I mean, it's also like, at that point of the year, you've gone over everything 100 times, and Quinny and the rest of the coaches, they've used every different type of way to get to us and to explain things to us after games, that it becomes so repetitive after a while that you almost feel for the coaches, like, what is it possibly that he could say today to us that
Yeah.
he hasn't already tried. There's
Mhm.
nothing, he's tried everything. So again, he I don't really envy him for the situation that he was in this year.
Mm.
Do
Well,
you think
moving. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, do you think by the end of the year that it was kind of wearing on Quinn a little bit in terms of all
I
the
mean, it was
losing
wearing
and
on it was wearing on
everybody?
everybody. It was wearing on me. It was wearing on management. I'm sure. So if it's not wearing on you, then you're either not a human being or you just don't care. I don't know. It's either one
Mhm.
of those two things.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask you too, Nico. Moving on, obviously the Sharks are about to start searching, or they are searching for a new coach now. And you mentioned the difference between Bruce Boudreau and David Quinn, which I thought was very interesting. I want to ask you about another coach that you actually played with in Minnesota, and his name has sort of been mentioned in the periphery, and just what you can tell. Not that you know anything about the coaching search per se, but just like what can you tell us about this coach? And you played for Dean Evison in Minnesota before he went to Colorado, and Dean was let go by Minnesota. But Dean had a pretty good track record with the Wild. Also has an extensive history of development with the Milwaukee Admirals. And so, anyway, just what are your impressions of Dean?
Yeah, I think I've had Dino first as an assistant and then as a head coach in Minnesota, and like you said, he has that track record of first coaching. I think it was in Milwaukee, if I'm not
Yep.
if I'm not wrong, and so and then kind of worked his way up, right? So he knows how to handle the young players and also like older players. I think in Minnesota we probably had a team that was a little further along than we are on the
Hmm.
on the timeline right now. Um, I would probably say that he is very he's a very stern guy, like very direct. Like he's not gonna beat around the bush much with the players. He's gonna tell you what he thinks. And practices were always short but very intense, very hard. And so yeah, those are the kind of the main things that I know. I remember with Dino, it was always very like when you see him in interviews and stuff, you can kind of tell what his personality is. It's a very direct kind of coach, um, and that's how I remember him.
Yeah, he strikes me too, and not to just like compare the coaches you've had, but David strikes me as a very even tempered kind of coach usually. Not just how he talks to us, but just what I hear from other people and whatnot.
Yeah,
Whereas Dean is maybe a little harder edge, and not to say that both work, right? Both coaches have had a
yeah.
lot of success, but Dean has maybe a little bit more of that kind of harder edge, maybe.
It's also tough to compare because again, we're in a much different situation with when I was in Minnesota than we're
Sure.
here in San Jose. So it's like I don't really know how Quinny would handle a team that, let's say, has Stanley Cup aspirations. I can't really speak to that. I'm sure there were times this year where maybe it was time to yell or backskate us, but he kind of had to hold off on that because what are you going to do? Do that 7 months of the year? Yell at everybody in the room and skate us
Could have
every
done that
like
every
it's
week, right?
yeah, like players are gonna quit after 2 weeks of the season. You can't do that, right? So it's again, I think that's why the comparison is a little tougher in
Sure.
Minnesota, for example. We're always had playoff aspirations and Stanley Cup aspirations, and if we hadn't won a game in 2 or 3 games, you can feel the intensity every day around the ring. We either win or somebody's getting traded kind of intensity. Like you can feel, so, like everybody's hair is on fire, and Billy Guerin, he was always walking around like you can just tell that kind of intensity everyday practice with an extremely young team that keeps them losing. Obviously, like it won't work. Like
It won't work.
Yeah.
players are going to be like walking around eggshells at the rink every day, scared to make a mistake. So it's a fine line that you have to walk. So I don't really want to compare those two
Mm.
situations. So it's a little tough. Yeah.
One other name that's out there in the coaching search is former Sharks player Marco Sturm. I don't think any relation, but I actually haven't
No,
asked
no,
yet. But
he's not. No, really. We've asked. Nico
um,
gets
Nah.
asked all the time. No
ah,
relation. No
but
relation.
I guess the question is, what have you heard about him as a coach, if anything, from your Team Germany teammates? I don't think you've played for him in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have not. I think the first year I was about to jump in to the men's national team, he ended up taking a job. I think LA assistant coach,
Yeah,
and
LA. Yep.
one of the things he did certainly was kind of turn our national team program here around. I think he was kind of the guy where success came back to German hockey, and then after him we had Tony Söderholm, and now we got Harry as coach here. But he was certainly the guy where I think Germany as a hockey nation or as a hockey federation, we started to garner some respect again internationally. So in that year, I spoke to him once or twice on the phone. I ended up not going to Worlds because I had finals at school at university, so I actually had to kind of blow him off there and kind of just focus on school. So I don't actually know him all too well, to be honest with you, but like you mentioned, he obviously has the San Jose background, and certainly from the outside, there seems to be a tendency that we or the San Jose tends to hire people that have some sort of history, often with the organization, which totally makes sense to me.
Okay. Well, Nico, really, really appreciate your time here. I know that your Wi-Fi it's lasted for 24 minutes, so we shouldn't test
Doing pretty
our
well.
luck. Yeah, done pretty well there, so we shouldn't test our
Yeah.
luck too much. I know you're getting ready for. Do you guys start tomorrow or?
Tomorrow we got Slovakia tomorrow. Actually, back
Oh,
to
okay.
back. We got Team Slovakia, and then we got actually US the next day. So
Wow.
and then Sweden 2 days later. So we got the on paper the three hardest teams right
Oof.
out of the gates. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll let you go. Best wishes, everyone who's listening. We're recording this, by the way, on May the 9th, so before the World Championships. But best of luck, Nico. Just finally, how does your summer look after the Worlds? When do you come back here to San Jose?
Yeah, so after Worlds, I guess the good thing about Worlds is it keeps you in skating and in on ice in competitive shape for, another 5 weeks after season ends. So that's really good. It's not always fun to train off ice and in the weight room from the middle of April till middle of September. That's a long, long time. So that's why I always like, the concept of playing at Worlds. And then certainly I will take, 10 days off after and let the body recoup. I also had obviously a surgery this year and some problems health wise. So let the body recover a little bit. And also I think the mental aspect of the game is big. You wanna reattack. You wanna come in with a fresh mind and be excited about the season starting again and trying once more. So let the body rest for a little bit, and then I'm actually going to be in Minnesota for about a month or so, attending a wedding, skating with my skating coach there. Starting, my summer workouts, the first couple of weeks, be skating there, and then head back to Germany, stay with my family about probably middle of August, then head back to Minnesota one more time, finish up the summer skating there for a couple of weeks, and probably be back out in San Jose. I'd wager first week of September at some point,
Mhm.
depending on how the schedule looks when it comes out. Last year, I think I was back in San Jose first week of September, so probably around that time. So a little bit of Minnesota, a little bit of Germany, and then back to Minnesota again, and then we'll see you in San Jose in early September.
All right, sounds good. Well,
Great.
Nico, best wishes on World Championships. You want to get excited, refresh your mind, keep reading about your potential future teammate, Macklin
Right.
Celebrini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just read the hype, so that'll
Yeah.
get you excited. And
Perfect.
yeah, thank you again for coming on, Nico.
Yeah. Best of
Thank
luck,
you.
Nico.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
see you soon.